This project is so simple to recreate. I'm going to take a pack of painter sticks. There's 10 inside the pack that you can pick up at Home Depot, and it's $1. I'm going to put 8 of them side by side, and the last 2 I'm going to measure it as the length of all of these 8, and then I'm going to cut it down to size with my miter box and my saw. I'll link it down below. I get asked all the time. This is my favorite one that I have. I'm going to just add on some hot glue and some wood glue, little dots, and I'm just going to add that all together to make sure it bonds well. And I'm not going to use any staple guns on this because I feel like the hold was well enough. Then I took it outside and I spray painted it a taupey tan color, and now I'm going to add on some rub-ons. Now if you have a vinyl cutting machine, you can totally use that too, but this makes just such a cute, easy sign that you can recreate and customize to whatever you want. And I want you to see that you don't have to have a vinyl cutting machine. You can hand paint the letters like I do a lot here on my channel, or you can use stickers, or you can use rub-ons. There's so many options out there if you don't have a vinyl cutting machine in your budget. I know that a lot of times it's what crafters show here on YouTube, and I just want you to know that if you don't have one, that's okay. You can still be creative without spending a ton of money. Then at the very top, because there's no place like home, I put my little apostrophe up at the top, and now I'm going to add some greenery. I'm just going to take some boxwood, wrap a little bit of a gingham ribbon around it to hold those in place, glue that onto my sign, and then I'm going to add on a really beautiful white sunflower. I thought that this looked so pretty and can be used more than just for one particular season. You can use it year-round. Then I'm going to take my Crop-A-Dile, one of my other favorite tools that I use a lot here on my channel, and I'm going to punch out 2 holes at the very top, so that way we can have a beautiful ribbon that will allow it to be able to be hung up somewhere in your home. So I've decided to have my knots be on the outside because I just thought that that looked really cute. Once I've got my ribbon at the top, it's ready to be hung up and displayed. As I was walking around my thrift store, I came across this clock and I was so giddy. There was actually a woman shopping in front of me and I was praying and hoping that she did not pick it up. She thankfully passed it up and I grabbed it the second I could get my hands on it because I knew that I could update it and give it life in our home. So I'm just going to preserve the metal gold ring around it. I liked that. I didn't want to get any spray paint on that. I'm just going to cover that up with a few strips of painter's tape and making sure that the seal is not touching onto the wood. I'm also going to cover up the very inside of the bottom framing of this clock because I want to make sure I'm preserving the area where the batteries are inserted into it, as well as the back side, because later on I found out, I had no idea, this clock actually chimes as well. I took it outside and gave it 2 lovely coats of spray paint with this taupey gray color. I love how it turned out. Now, I could leave it like this, but you all know that I love a little farmhouse here on my channel, so I'm just going to lightly sand the edges to really show all of the detail work on this clock. It's amazing how just spray painting it really brightened up this clock, and I love how it's styled on my shelves now. Our next DIY is going to be using this sign from the Dollar Tree. Now sometimes when you crack these open, I wanted to actually show you all, sometimes they have factory issues where they weren't put together properly. So to fix that issue, I'm just adding some hot glue and I'm just going to put that right back in the corner. And you can see that one of these little triangle support frame pieces is missing, which is fine. It's not the end of the world if that happens, but just add some hot glue and make sure it's nice and secure before you move on. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take some of their plastic cutlery that they have at the Dollar Tree, and I spray painted the fork, spoon, and knife and the sign all black. And then to add in some texture and that really pretty farmhouse look, I took a piece of burlap and I cut it down to the size that I wanted. You don't want it to go all the way up to the edge of your sign. You want to have a little bit of hangover. And I just hot glued it down and then pulled off any of those extra fibers to expose more of that texture on the sides of the burlap. Then I'm going to take my spoon, fork, and knife, and I'm going to hot glue those down onto my sign just like I'm doing here. And I'm just positioning them first before I commit to the hot glue, because once they go down, it's hard to get them back up. So just make sure you have the positioning right, and then add a lot of hot glue so it doesn't come off and it's nice and secure on there. I started with my knife first to make sure, once again, that's centered and it looks right. If you start with your spoon or your fork, you could have an issue where they're not centered the way you want them to be, and then you'll feel frustrated every time you look at it in your kitchen. So start with the knife, and then I did the spoon next, and then the fork. And at that point, I thought it would be really cute. You could leave it like that, or we could take it a little further. I took one of these sticks from the Dollar Tree, these tongue depressor sticks, and I'm cutting out a little dovetail detail on the side. I thought this would be so cute to add this in, and it just adds a little personality, and it makes it look like a little plaque that was almost put on the front of it. And you could paint whatever you want on the front. You could put your family's name, you could put your name and your kitchen. So for me, it would be like Heidi's Kitchen. You could just do so many cute things with this. So once you've got your sign all painted, go ahead and add some hot glue. And then you saw there on the ends, I was adding a little bit of support glue to make sure it really stays on there. Now this is the point where you could use vinyl, or you can hand paint on letters. Like I said, you can put whatever you want, Heidi's Kitchen, or your name, obviously. Why would you put Heidi's Kitchen in your kitchen? That would just be silly. And then I decided to go with homemade. I roughed it up just a little bit and then went back in and touched up any spots that maybe I took off too much paint, because I wanted it to look, you know, that chippy look, but not too much, because again, like I said, that's just my style. So have fun with it and customize it the way you want. When I saw this little farmhouse church, I was so giddy. I know I saw this at Hobby Lobby like a year ago, and they were selling this for close to 40 bucks. Even with the coupon, it still is not going to beat the price I spent on this, which was $3.50. So I definitely popped that into my shopping cart. And today we're going to start by just taking some painter's tape to preserve that rustic corrugated metal. It is going to shine when we paint this thing. I think the reason why it was probably donated was the green. It's a little bold of a color. If you're doing it for like Christmas, it's probably good, but if not, you'll see how I'm going to transform it in just a second. As I was putting the painter's tape on the awning over the front door of this little church, one of the staples came loose, so I just decided to pull the whole thing off. And then at that point, I took it outside, gave it a couple coats of spray paint, which was a flat white. And now I'm going to be dry brushing on a dark brown. You can see here that I'm really trying to get a lot of the paint off onto a paper towel, because the more the dry brush you have, the better it's going to have a nice aged look versus being too heavy with the paint. So now that I've got my paintbrush loaded, ready to go, I'm going to take off all of that painter's tape, and anywhere where you see the white bleed through on the corrugated metal, I'm going to come back in after I do all my dry brushing, and I'm going to touch up that paint. The other tip you can do, you can take a piece of sandpaper and sand off any of that excess paint. It'll come off really nicely, and then if you still want to touch it up with some brown paint, you can. So see, at this point, I'm already starting to come in, do some dry brushing on it, on the areas where hands would naturally touch, and then up underneath that corrugated metal where the white got, I went ahead and just touched that up to clean it all up. Friends, the white paint made this corrugated farmhouse rustic looking metal shine. It was so pretty once the white and the brown from the rooftop came together. I love it so much, and I bet you if it was white, the person probably would not have donated it. Now at this point, I love using a staple gun I think being a thrifter, you should always have a staple gun. It's amazing how many things you can bring home and fix by just using a staple gun. So I'm going to just staple back on that little awning above the little door of my church. And then to match the staples to the rustic look, I'm going to go ahead and just tap that with the brown paint to conceal those staples. And at this point, friends, oh my word, this little church, it just makes my heart so happy. I think it's so cute. And can you believe it? It was at Hobby Lobby. I saw it there. It saved so much money. Anyway, I hope you'll give this one a try and look for these cute little churches or wooden farmhouse buildings at your thrift store. For this craft, we're going to be using one of these galvanized buckets and one of these oven cover trays, burner tray covers. I always call them different things and I always get it wrong. But we're going to bring them together with some E6000 and some hot glue. I always like to clean up the bottom if there's ever E6000 that kind of goops out when you press it down. But make sure your bucket is centered in the middle of the oven burner tray cover. And then once you've got that all aligned and adhered, I took some painter's tape and I'm just going to cover up the twine because I don't want paint to get on the twine part of this craft. I went ahead and got everything spray painted black that was metal, and now I'm revealing that the twine was nice and covered so you can still have that beautiful twine on there. And now I'm going to go ahead and take some of this gingham black and white fabric, cut off a strip, and I'm going to start by doing just a simple knot around it so I can get the tails part of my bow. And I wanted the fabric to wrap around the base part of this cute little tray we're making. And now I'm just going to add a fabric bow that I put together by just folding in the sides and putting a little bit of extra fabric in the middle. And now it's ready to be displayed. For this DIY, we're going to be taking 6 of these super popular galvanized corrugated metal frames with clips on them, some painter sticks, and then some of these really large tongue depressor sticks that I get from Walmart. I'm going to take apart the frame, pop off the back, and then with my little eyeglass screw kit, I'm just going to take off that tiny little screw, and we're going to just save those because I'm sure on another day I'll find a use for these little clips. And then we're going to just glue everything back into place. And the part where I popped off the back, I'm putting that part inside the frame so that the back of this looks really nice and finished. Then I'm going to take 2 of them and glue those together on their sides. I'm making sure that the holes are going opposite direction. You can see right there. I wanted to make sure that they were going out so it didn't look like you have 2 random holes in the middle. And then I put 2 together the long way, 2 together the long way, and then I'm taking the 5th and the 6th frame, and that's going to become the sides of a darling crate with a handle that we're making. So we're just going to add some glue, and then we're going to come back in with our staple gun, and we're going to just secure it to make sure that everything is nice and snug and not going to come apart. I don't always just trust hot glue when it comes to certain things. I like to secure things because I don't want things to break and fall apart on me as I use them. When I make them, I want to make sure they last forever. Then on the inside, I'm going to take my painter stick and I'm just going to add a whole bunch of hot glue in there, and I'm going to glue that right into place. And then I'm going to come back in with my staple gun and add a couple staples to make sure everything is nice and secure. Once I've got the 2 handles on, one on opposite side of each other on the shorter parts of this box, I'm going to cut off the top and the bottom of these long sticks that you can get from Walmart, And I'm going to make sure that the right length of the end of the box, and this is going to become the base of our box. Now I don't, again, just trust hot glue. I think that that can pop off really easily. So I'm going to come back in with my staple gun, and I'm just going to pop on one staple at each one of the sticks on the top and the bottom to make sure everything is nice and secure. And then at this point, we're going to go ahead and add on the handle. Now I have this dowel stick that I have in my craft room from the home improvement store, but you can honestly use a plunger stick for this. And I'm just going to cut it down with my miter box and my saw, and then I'm going to go ahead and screw that into place using my drill. I always like to pre-drill holes anytime I ever work with these painter sticks, because they can splinter quite easily. So I always pre-drill the hole first to make sure things go through nice and smooth without having any problem. And then I just drill it all into place. And now at this point, you can add whatever color paint you want to it, distress it, and it will look so adorable to use in your home for any season year round.
If you are new to my channel and you are enjoying this content, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and make sure you click the subscribe button so you don't miss more videos that are coming out here on my channel.
For this project, you're going to need 9 of these boxes. I picked these all up from the Dollar Tree around Christmas time, but they definitely have them all year round. Then with a ruler, I'm going to be creating 2 angled lines and then a little bit of a lip on the box. This is going to be done on 3 of the boxes. Now you can see here I'm using my big scissors as I'm coming in along the side, but as I got to that corner, I realized a little pair of scissors were much better for that, so it didn't cause any of the box to rip. So just take your time when you're cutting around those corners and making sure that you're not forcing that cardboard, because it will rip if you're not careful. So once I came up the side and I had that part all cut, I repeated that 2 more times for my other boxes. Then I took some hot glue and some E6000 because I really wanted it to hold well together, because I want to keep this forever. I love this thing. I'm now going to just glue those together so it's a nice strong hold. And then I'm going to use some of these clips from the Dollar Tree. These are just the cutest, and I find that they're so helpful in my craft room. Now I've got 3 at the top, and I'm going to continue down with 3 more just regular boxes, not cut. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom and then do another row of 3. Once I had everything all glued nice and tight and firmly in place, I took it outside and gave it a nice coat of gray spray paint. Now we're going to be creating a galvanized look. It's really simple to do. You're just dabbling on paint on top of the gray spray paint that you originally had. I went from a dark to a medium to a light gray, and then very tiny bits here and there of white. We want the white to be that part where it just kind of shines when you look at that galvanized metal. And then I just use a paper towel and I just keep dabbing it around until I get the look that I like, but you want all of those colors to come through. Now I'm taking some long painter sticks and I'm cutting them down to the size that I need of the length of my container that I'm making here. And this inspiration came from one of my favorite online stores. I will link it down below. They most likely have sold out in this particular item, but I love these things. I feel like you can put so many fun things inside of them, and it's just so fun to be able to decorate on a shelf for a holiday. I think they're so cute. And the inspiration that it came from, it was so expensive. This, I'm seriously making it for maybe about $10, $11 versus the price that it is listed down below in my description box. Now I'm just simply adding some tags, screwing it in with an eyeglass screwer, and it's ready to be decorated. I found this darling wood house in the craft section at the Dollar Tree. I have some of this long garland greenery and then this gingham ribbon also from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take off that twine ribbon at the top, and then I'm going to take this garland and I'm going to twist it into a darling little wreath. It's really simple to do. You just twist a circle, tighten one end, and then take the other existing long piece. And I like to make sure that I wrap it twice because it makes the garland little wreath look a lot thicker. So I'm just twisting all that into place, adding some hot glue, and then I'm going to put that on the front of the house. This house could be decorated so many different ways for so many different holidays. I just think it's so cute, and I wanted to make sure I featured it here on my channel to go and find these houses, pick them up, and you can do so many neat things with them. Now I'm going to take some wire because I feel like this is, you know, a little bit higher quality than the twine, and I'm going to just cut out a piece that's long enough to be able to loop around. I like to always twist my wire like this because it just looks really farmhouse and cute. I don't know. It's just kind of the way I always do it. Once that's nice and snug on there, I just think this is going to look so cute hung up on a wall somewhere. I'm going to add on a gingham bow, and then at this point we could stop here or we can take it a little bit further like I like to do here with my crafts on my channel. I'm going to take one of these metal tag labelers and I'm going to just create two little dots where I know where to take my crocodile to punch out some holes. I love my crocodile tool. I talk about it a lot here on my channel. If you're new, I have had this tool forever. It used to be, well, it still is. It's a scrapbook tool that you use to put on eyelets on scrapbook pages. But it goes through metal and cardboard and thick pieces of just pretty much anything, and it doesn't hurt your hand to use it. So I went ahead and punched out two holes, and now I've got my brad tray out, my little organizing kit that I use for scrapbooking, and I'm going to pop out two brads that I think will look cute and work well with this metal tag sign, and I'm going to just put those right through the holes and then fasten them into place by opening up the back side of them. And to make sure they don't come off or come loose, I'm going to just add on some hot glue to glue those into place. And then at the front side, I'm going to slip in a little piece of paper, and I've decided to write the word home. But it could be so cute because you could put your address, you could put your family's name, whatever you'd like. This DIY is super simple. We are going to be taking a bamboo cutting board, some of these screw hooks, and then one of these little garden tag signs that I use so much here on my channel. I buy them in bulk anytime I can find them because I love them so much. I'm going to pop off that stick and remove anything that's left over and then add a whole bunch of glue to stick that right at the top of my sign. Once I've got that nice and centered and glued on there really well, I went ahead and used my ruler to map out the spacing that I would need to be able to create my hooks to drill into them perfectly spaced apart. So here I am, I'm just using my ruler and a pencil, creating my drill lines, and once I had everything all situated, I could now come in with my drill and create those holes. I highly recommend drilling the holes first because if you don't, trying to put these little screws in, it can be very challenging. So drilling the holes allows it to already have that spacing it needs to be able to get those hooks in there without it having any problems. So here I am, I'm just going to go ahead and drill all 6 of these holes, and we are turning this into a key holder, which I thought would be so cool, and it's really cute just to hang by your front door so that you can hang up your keys when you come home so that you don't lose them. I lose my keys all the time, like all the time, you guys, and it drives me crazy. So I thought, hey, I should make something like this where I can just hang them up and then I stop having this bad habit of putting them down wherever. I do recommend using a pair of pliers when you get down to the screwing part. It makes it so much easier. And then to finish off the look, I'm going to go ahead and take some white paint, and I'm going to just go ahead and paint on the word key. Now well, actually keys, because there's an S, but you could use vinyl for this or stickers, whatever you have on hand. I just like to hand paint because I save a ton of money doing it this way and it's really quick. So once I've got that on, I'm going to add some twine to the back to be able to hang it up. And then after that, it's ready to be displayed and used to organize your keys so you stop losing them. This DIY is so simple to do. Don't blink, you'll miss it. So I'm taking these 4 supplies from the Dollar Tree. They have them out during the spring garden time. I'm putting the mesh liner inside of the basket, and then I'm taking this 3D wreath and I'm going to open it up and zip tie it to the bottom at all the junctions that line up. Now I saw this at one of my local gardening stores and it was so expensive. And when I saw it, I knew right away that I had all of these supplies from the Dollar Tree in my craft room. So I wanted to make it and show you all that you do not have to pay $40 for this. So far, I have only paid about $3.50. So at this point, I'm just taking apart the chain that was on the original basket. And I'm only going to be using one of those wire hooks. I'm just going to hook that up at the very top. And then you're ready to put outside with your beautiful plants.